We've all had our fair share of bad ideas. Maybe that job you wish you hadn't taken, that last drink you wish you didn't have, or even that boyfriend you wish you wouldn't have agreed to go on a date with. But there are also some bad ideas that you might have as a medical coding student. So let me talk to you today about those bad ideas and how you can avoid them. Hey everyone, I'm Victoria. I'm a medical coder, auditor, educator, and content creator. And on my channel, I provide tips, tricks, and tutorials to help you, yes you, be successful in a medical coding career. If you haven't already, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and that notification bell so that you can get alerts when I post new episodes. Today I'm going to go over the top 8 bad ideas that you might have as a medical coding student, how you can avoid those mistakes, and I'm going to give you some corrective tips along the way. Now, the first bad idea you might have as a medical coding student is skipping reading your books. And I know that sounds a little hard because this is a huge book. And even though maybe it seems encyclopedia-like, and it might not make sense to read an encyclopedia, you don't have to read this word for word, but there are things in your, like ICD-10-CM, your guidelines. You're going to want to read through your guidelines. You want to go down page by page through at least the book and kind of skim it so that you get familiar with what are the different contents that are available in your book, the layout of your book, how it's structured, the appendices in the back, even things like where those blank spaces might be that you can write some notes for your certification exam. So even though it might not explicitly say it in your curriculum, as a medical coding student, carve out some time to just flip through and page through your books to get familiar with what's in them. Depending on your curriculum, you may have different books, but most medical coding programs, you're going to have at least an ICD-10-CM, a HCPCS, and a CPT book, and you may have an ICD-10 PCS book as well. And again, you don't have to read every single word, but if you're opening a page and it's just codes, you might want to just kind of skim through them and see what codes and what procedures are included so you can get kind of familiar with what different procedures, what different diagnoses are out there. So things like your guidelines, yes, you should read, but if it's just a page full of codes, I would suggest just skim through them so that you can start getting familiar with the different services and procedures and diagnoses that are out there. You don't want to miss coding something just because you had no idea that there was even a code for something that you read in a report or a case study. And pro tip, because you do have your code books and then probably some sort of textbooks and study guides as well, that's a lot of books to carry around. So if you're someone that's taking classes in person or needs to transport your book back and forth, you're probably going to want a sturdy carrier. I will actually include in the description the one that I use that I bought on Amazon in case you're interested in a portable carrier as well. It's just too much books for a backpack, so you're going to want to get something that's more a on wheels carrier, almost like a luggage carrier. And like I said, I'm going to link the one that I use that I know is sturdy and durable below. The next bad idea that you might have is looking up the answers to all of your medical coding homework. Now, I will preface this by saying I understand that there are some cases that even I would get tripped up on and could be very difficult. So I think there's a difference between looking up 1 or 2 cases that you're like, this is really hard and I want to make sure I got this right, versus I don't really want to do the practice and I'm just going to look up all of the answers. Practice makes perfect is so true in medical coding. So you don't want to cheat yourself and your future career by just looking up all of the answers to your homework. You really want to invest the time in yourself and in your future by doing that practice. And that kind of leads me into the next bad idea that you might have, and that's skipping some of those practice cases that you may have in your textbook. All the good textbooks out there, like the ones from the AAPC or the step-by-step books, they have practice cases in them. So don't skip those practice cases because that will help you get that better grasp. Don't wait until the end where you're about to pass your certification and then you're cramming everything in. Pace yourself, plan out that time, and do those practice cases as you're going through them in your textbook and potentially that supplemental study material that you may have, like a workbook. Now, even though your teacher may only be assigning certain cases for you to code, it would really behoove you if you have the time and the capability to do the extra practice. Again, practice in medical coding does make perfect. And actually, another bad idea that you might have is only using the resources that your school gives you. There are so many amazing resources out there, even things like Quizlet and additional practice study guides and cases that you might want to look into, even practice exams like the one that I have with my review for the CPC linked below. You might want to look into those. The program I went through at my community college was pretty budget friendly, but part of that was they didn't really even recommend that I buy coding books. They basically gave me worksheets, and I borrowed the books off of a bookshelf in the back corner and coded some cases off of worksheets while I was in class. So I didn't really get to practice coding outside of my actual classroom setting. So if you're in a program where they're handing you worksheets and giving you coding books, you might want to look into some additional resources above and beyond that. Like I said, the step-by-step books are the ones I really enjoy. And if you're going to be seeking certification, you're definitely going to want some additional resources beyond what your school might just be offering. Things like certification study guides, practice examinations, or certain curriculum to prepare you or review you right before that certification exam. Now, I'll speak more about certifications in a little bit, but let's get back to that classroom setting. One thing that you might have that's a bad idea is comparing yourself to your classmates. We all have different strengths, we all have different weaknesses, we all learn different ways and at different paces. So something that might work for one of your classmates might not work for you, or you might just not have the time to devote because you're a busy mom handling different kids, handling a full-time job, and going to school part-time. And it would be really unfair to compare yourself to someone who just graduated high school and doesn't have the amount of responsibilities you have and has more free time to dedicate to studying. And this goes both ways. If you're the A+ student, don't try to compare yourself to the students who aren't doing so well. And this is something that I'm guilty of as well. I, as someone who's very successful in YouTube, really struggle sometimes with trying not to compare myself to someone who's just starting out. Comparison really can be the thief of joy, and the only person you should be comparing yourself to is your prior self. So, am I better today than I am yesterday, than I was a week ago? And keep improving on yourself. That's the only person that you should really be comparing yourself to, is your past self. Now, in order to improve, though, your future self, one thing that you should not do, and that would be a bad idea, is opting out of any sort of internship or externship that is offered to you. Now, again, I understand there are some extenuating circumstances. You, because of your situation with your other responsibilities in life, may not have the time to devote to work essentially for free, like some of these internships and externships are. However, if you have the opportunity and you can do it, that is really one of the biggest leg ups that you can have. It will be a big feather in your cap if you've completed an internship versus someone who hasn't. And that's not to say that everyone needs an internship. There are people who have found jobs that haven't had internships, that have gone through a program and found a job. But if you're given that extra opportunity and you know that that might be that one thing that puts you in an advanced position versus another candidate, you should do it if you have the capability. So if it's something you can do, I would really, really suggest that you not opt out of an internship, that you pursue it if you have the capability to do so. I'm someone that, as part of my program, was required to complete an internship, and after I completed my internship, I was immediately hired for that job in the billing office. However, I have a sister that went through the exact same program that I did, interned at the exact same place, but didn't wind up getting a job offer. So results do vary, but why intentionally miss out on that opportunity when that might be that one thing that can help advance you? Another mistake you want to avoid is not researching your certification programs, because not all certifications are created equal. There are some associations that have an agreement with certain schools that they'll say, hey, we'll offer a discounted certification through our academy for your students, but that particular certification might not be one that employers are really looking for. If you're going through AAPC or AHEMA, those are gold standards. You know those are good to go. If I go into Indeed.com and type in CPC or CPB or CCSP, which are some of their certifications through AAPC and AHEMA, I'll come up with jobs. But if I go into Indeed.com and I type in certain other certifications, there aren't actually jobs that will populate. And the reason for that is because there aren't any job openings that are looking for that certification. Now, for liability purposes, I won't tell you which certifications I don't think you should get, but I'm just telling you, if you're looking for something that employers are looking for, you can use that trick by typing it into Indeed.com and seeing if it's something that's in demand. Now, the eighth and final bad idea that you might have actually would be not seeking any certification. While a lot of medical billing jobs don't require certification, they really do for medical coding. You can find medical coding jobs that don't require certification, but usually it's contingent on your employment, meaning that they say within 1 year of your date of hire for your coding position, you have to have an appropriate medical coding credential. It certainly looks better to have a credential in billing, like if you have your CPB, that will look good for someone wanting to hire you to work within the revenue cycle. For medical coders, it's almost a must these days. So get your certification and research it as well, because depending on what type of coding you want to do, there's different certifications out there. There's the CCSP or the CPC if you want to do professional fee coding, coding for services that are rendered by providers like surgeons and family practitioners. Then there is also the CCS or CIC, which is inpatient coding, where you have to actually know a different code set, the ICD-10 PCS code set. And that's coding for patients that are admitted to the hospital and they're using all the hospital equipment and beds and staff, and coding for that whole hospital inpatient stay. And then there's risk adjustment coding, which is just ICD-10 CM. So depending on what specific type of coding you want to do, you might want to pursue a different certification. But bottom line, if you want to be a medical coder, you're going to want to get a certification through the AAPC or a HEMA. So even though you may have a diploma or a degree, it's really that certification that's going to be your golden ticket to getting that job offer. By the way, if you are looking for a medical billing and coding degree program, check out go.onlinedegree.com/contempo. They have a quiz that they developed specifically for my audience that asks the same questions that I would have asked you. How long do you want to be done? How much money do you have to spend? And what features you want? And they will basically pair you up with an accredited school. They only work with accredited schools and universities, and you know that you're getting into a good, legitimate program, not something that's going to close their doors in a few months. And they offer some great features just to my audience, but only if you use my link, go.onlinedegree.com/contempo. So did you ever have any bad ideas as a medical coding student, or are you here because you're trying to avoid making those mistakes? Definitely let me know in the comments below. I will see you guys in the next video, and until then, you just keep on coding on.